That is recording. So, again, welcome to another meeting of our Arkansas Broadband Leaders Network, ABLN. For those that don't know, maybe the first time, we have alternating ABLN calls every 2 weeks. So week A, in theory, is a generic office hours, open floor Q&A for our county broadband committee members across the state. Week B, 2 weeks later, we have a topic for folks and let them learn some new information as we go through this program, and looking forward to it. Today, we have permitting and locating, so that's going to be a good topic for our folks, and we'll get started here. Our agenda very quickly, so updates from our team on a couple of items, then we're going to hear from RDOT on permitting, we're going to hear some locating information from Arkansas 811, allow the ability for our committee members to offer any insights that they have had in their experiences at the local level with both permitting and locating. We'll do a brief open hours Q&A session real quick. We're going to touch on expanding membership in the Arkansas Broadband Leaders Network and what that's going to look like. For anyone that doesn't know, we have dedicated the first several months of this communications outreach strictly with our community, with our county broadband committees. To date, we have, well, I don't want to give away a slide, but we have more than half of our counties have formed county broadband committees to date, so we're really excited about that. And we made a commitment to our folks that they would be the lead group in the ABLN, so we started with them. We're going to expand that a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then we'll go over our next meeting and some interesting information about that. So very quickly, updates from our office. Some of you should be, well, most of you should be receiving a new weekly communication from our office. We're calling it our weekly review newsletter / email that has gone out. We've done at least, I think, 2, maybe 3 at this point. We should have one again go out today or tomorrow. It's basically a super brief newsletter that goes out weekly, just highlighting all things broadband in Arkansas, so things that are happening within our office. Other interesting news and notes and tidbits from around the state. Sometimes we'll have stuff from around the country that we think is relevant. So it's another effort for us to be communicating as much as possible with our broadband stakeholders throughout the state. So we look forward to continuing to do that. We're at 45 broadband committees now at the county level with actual true membership. Jackson County is the latest to join the list. I think we have about 52 if we count counties that have sort of a leader person of contact, but not a true committee yet. So we have 52 that are in the process of actively organizing, but 45 with actual list of names of active members. So we're excited about that. And we say it all the time, but we're not going to stop until we have all 75 with active counties across the state. A couple of quick planning document updates from our team. The 5-year action plan, sort of I frame it as an executive summary document. Again, that was published back August 28th to U.S. Commerce and publicly here in the state. That's available on our website, broadband.arkansas.gov. You can download it there. We've passed it out and had great communication efforts to get the document put around to our stakeholders. And so, again, it's been published. It's available. Please read it. There's no formal public comment period on it, but we're accepting comments from folks that want to send it in. So if you have any comments or feedback on it, feel free to email us. We're cataloging all of those comments to make our planning better. Initial proposal volume 1 and initial proposal volume 2 have both been drafted. Volume 1, which the main substance of volume 1 covers the mapping challenge process that we're planning to kick off Q1 in 24 as part of the overall BEAD process that we have to do as a state. Volume 1 should be released very soon publicly. So I don't want to give an exact time frame, but very, very soon. That's going to come out shortly. So I think you'll be surprised on the timeline for that. Volume 2 has also been drafted. It's going through edit and revision internally within state government. We expect that one to go publicly within the next month. So we're ahead of schedule. We're proud of that. We're moving forward. And we can't wait to get those out for formal 30-day public comment periods and get feedback from all of our stakeholders. Lastly, the digital skills and opportunity plan, which is sort of it's a plan that we have to do. It's not a part of the $1 billion BEAD program. It's part of a separate program that was in the infrastructure bill. So we have to have a plan about broadband extras, so digital skills and opportunity. And we'll have that out for public comment in the next couple of months as well. So just wanted to give a brief update on our planning documents and what that looks like. All right, we're going to hand it over to RDOT. Topic on this one is going to be permitting, and I will let that group take it away.
All right, thank you, Glenn. I'll just go ahead and introduce myself and the couple of guys that I've got here from my office to do this presentation. I'm Blaine Gartrell. I'm Section Head of Utilities for RDOT. And I've got a couple of my lead utility coordinators, Corey Sutton and Richard Thomas, that'll be doing the presentation. And I'll actually cover a couple different items. Permitting when dealing with DOT, and then also something that we'll end up having to deal with is relocation and reimbursement for highway projects. So we will start that off right now. Hand it over to these guys.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Thomas. I'm a lead utility coordinator for RDOT. Been doing this about 10 years now. Like Blaine said, first I'm going to go over utility relocation with highway projects. We kind of break our office down. We handle everything, but it's kind of broke down into two parts. The majority of what we do is highway relocation projects, but we also do the permitting process outside of those projects for anybody that's going to be laying fiber within our highway right of way. And that process typically starts at our district level. The department has 10 districts, and each district has a district permit officer. So that's where the initial point of contact is for the permitting process. But first, I'm going to go over the relocation process, and that is handled directly out of the utility section. So this basically, the way we handle these is we do what we call an advanced utility investigation. Initially, we get a job, a project area, we send that over to Arkansas One Call. They let us know the members that are in the area, and that is who we go with as far as who we're going to end up sending plans to. So we do our field investigations. We figure out who's out there, where they're located, and we draw all that up. We come up with a cost estimate, and we turn that in for funding purposes on our end. And then we end up, once our roadway division, or the guys that draw the actual highway plans, they get those up to us. Once they reach a certain percentage, we send those out to all the utilities involved that are on One Call, and we start the process of getting proposals, whether it's reimbursable or non-reimbursable. We get proposals in from the utilities. We issue work orders, change orders, all that good stuff. So basically, in AUI, like I said, we use a One Call list, try to get out ahead of these jobs to figure out if there's any big utilities out there, especially fiber boxes, duct runs, things of that nature, or power transmission facilities, or COs. That way we can try to design around those and avoid them. Then we do a what we call a UFI, and that's whenever we get the initial plans of what we're thinking we're going to do, and we go back out to the site and do a more thorough investigation as far as drawing exactly where the power poles are, where all of the communication boxes are, water meters, all that kind of thing. And at that point, we're still in contact with the design team, and typically with small water companies, we go and figure out if they've got any financial complications and handle it from there. So once our design reaches what we call 50% plans, that basically means that we don't expect any design changes that will affect utilities. And at that point, we send them out to all of the utility companies that we've identified in the UFI and the One Call list. So we send those out, and we try to get a proposal back within 60 days. And we either write an agreement, or if it's reimbursable, and if it's non-reimbursable, then we handle it through a permitting process, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. But basically, how we determine whether or not it's reimbursable is any facilities that are located within the existing right-of-way are non-reimbursable unless they have a prior right, which basically means they predate the department. If anything is on private easement or located outside of the right-of-way, then that is eligible for reimbursement. So on the proposal, there are certain items we look for to write our agreements. And, if y'all are using a consultant, we would like to know who that consultant is so we can be in contact with them and work with them through that issue. But the utility owner is ultimately responsible and has to sign off on everything. But yeah, there's some items that we like to see. We're going to ask you for, especially the days. That helps us with our scheduling of when we're going to let the projects to contract. So in a relocation cost estimate, there's going to be engineering cost, removal, right-of-way cost, everything. Basically, we want to see everything, and we want it broke down as far as A plus B equals C. We want to see all the details, and that's mostly for auditing purposes. We want to see how you come up with the total, and if it does end up getting audited, then it makes it easier to explain. So RDOT plan reading. If you've never dealt with a set of highway plans, all of our coordinators are pretty well skilled at reading the plans, and we'll work with you, work through the process of understanding what lines, what it all means, because it can get pretty hectic, especially on bigger projects as far as knowing what is what. But we're more than helping and willing to work with you guys through that process. So 3D engineering is kind of a new thing. We've only gotten into this on a couple of projects. It takes a lot of more front end work as far as identifying where the utilities are and mapping all of that out. There's only a couple of companies that do this, and we're starting to see it come about in the industry. So that's something to be looking for, an alternative delivery. So the plans that we're looking for, preferably if they can be drawn on our plans, that makes it easier for us to identify if there's potential problems, or we think you have to redesign because we see something that the utility owner may not see. So work order and schedule, like I said earlier, this is pretty critical to how and when we let projects. We do a pretty good job at estimating how long we think it's going to take, but sometimes just depending on the utilities and their work schedule, things are open to change. So we're constantly asking for updates on estimated completion dates and things like that. Change orders, I think everybody's probably well aware of those, but we handle all of those in-house. The billing portion of it, we can handle everything within our office. We have a utility billing coordinator, and they handle that process. So a lot of times companies wait until the very end of the project and then bill it all at once, and that's fine. But we do allow for progressive payments. So final actual cost billing, there's a few details that we need. Really, the big thing is we want to see all the costs broke down just like we did with the agreement. Need a set of as-built plans and a couple other small things. on lump sum, which is a little bit different. It requires a lot of front end work as far as estimating. But when it comes to the billing, we don't have to see all of the backup. We basically pay what the agreement amount is and go from there. So kind of like I said earlier, alternative delivery. This is starting to come around as far as a lot of pre-investigation of utilities and where they're at. You know, something we're doing all over the state. Hasn't taken off across the board yet, but definitely be looking for it depending on where you're at, and get into a lot of the subsurface utility investigation. And the construction management team that we hire is responsible for that. And we basically just walk them through the process, make sure everything's in line with the RDOT's utility accommodation policy and things like that. So then there's also design build. I won't get into that a whole lot, but we haven't started doing very many of those. So CMGC, like I said, it's a lot more work on the front end. We don't have very many projects that are complete yet to see how this whole process is going to work and if it's something we're going to continue to use. But so it's pretty new to us, but we're working through it, and it's a lot of front end work, but trying to avoid utilities and minimize damage and relocation of any utilities is the main goal on this. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Corey, and he is going to go over the permitting process.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. My name is Corey Sutton, and I am also a lead utility coordinator here at Arkansas Department of Transportation. I'd like to touch base with you today in regards to permits and permit types. Now, we have 4 different types of permits that we generally see here in our section. The first one, actually, yeah, the 4. The first one is a general district utility permit. That is going to be a permit that the district will actually handle on at their level. They can review and issue these permits. Usually the turnaround is usually about 2 to 3 days, depending on the complexity of the work. And then the next permit that we actually issue here is the UD permit, and that's for major work. And all the permits start at the district level. The district permit officer will enter the permit and then send it to us up here. And we'll look at the permit and make sure it's not going to conflict with some future or current jobs that we have going on. And once we look at it, make sure everything goes along with our utility accommodation policy, then we'll send it forward and issue the permits. So the first permit we'll talk about is the GU permit is what we call it. It's the district utility permit. And this permit is really for minor work. It's less than a quarter of a mile in length. So anything up to a quarter of a mile, the district can review and issue at their level. The exceptions to that are if there's any pavement cuts involved, if there's any work around bridges, and if you're dealing with control of access highways. And control of access highways are highways that utilize either on ramps or off ramps, or they may have grade separations like overpasses. These permits are generally only good for 4 months. So when I used to be the permit officer in District 6, so what I used to tell all the utilities, if you've got this project shovel ready and you're ready to go and you're eligible, you should use a GU permit. If you're not ready to start the work yet, it's going to be 6 months or longer, I would suggest going and doing the UD permit because it's good for 1 year. Main takeaways is do not forget your traffic control plan. That is more important than the plans you submit, because safety for our public and our workers is paramount. Always have your permit on hand. Some folks like to go to the digital world and they're going to have a permit on their laptop, or they'll say, oh, well, I've got it in my office. You need to have your permit in your vehicle. If permit officer drives by and they want to inspect your permit, or if an area maintenance supervisor, district engineer, any RDOT employee would like to see the permit, you have to be able to present that permit. You can't just say, oh, I've got it back at the office. You will be shut down and you will be asked to get out of the right of way until you are able to present that permit. Let me show you an example real quick of what a GU permit looks like. Okay. So this is our standard permit, and I'm using Summit Utilities as an example here. So you have your standard information, the company, the address, the detailed location of where the work's going to be, and then what the scope is going to be. And then you always make sure, ladies and gentlemen, to sign your permits. Your permit is like a contract. If you do not sign the permit is invalid. We will send it back to you. You will have to start the process over again. So here's an example of just an overview of where the proposed work is going to be. This is perfectly fine. This is the highway where the work is going to be done. And then this is the second thing. This is our utilities usually get this from the right-of-way engineering section, and this is a right-of-way map. And what this is this is usually a right-of-way map of an older job that the right-of-way is still relevant. And these are the things that we like to see on the map. We like to see, your proposed scope, what you're doing, how far you plan on being from the right-of-way line. That is very important. If you're going in our right-of-way and you're not seeking a private easement, our accommodation policy states that we would prefer you to be in the back 5 feet of the right-of-way, but no more than 10 feet inside as measured from the right-of-way line towards the roadway. And we like to see that pointed out, that yes, you're going to be within that 10-foot buffer. We like that. We want that called out. And as you see, this is going to have this. We got a little bit of a parallel run inside the right of way, and then we've got a crossing. When we have crossings, we need to have a crossing profile sheet. These are given by the permit officer to the utilities. If they don't have them, you can call up here to the utility section. We can provide them for you. These are standard based. These are minimum requirements for a road bore. And this 60 inches. This is 60 inches from the center line down to the top of the bore. That is a minimum requirement. That means that needs to be no less than 60 inches under the highway, under the center line, and then 48 inches under the ditch line or the curb line of the highway that you're crossing. And this is very important. If you're crossing a highway, you have to have this. We also have a spot for aerial. On our aerial crossings, we require that the crossings be no less than 18 feet above the highway. Any less than that, you run a risk of trucks snagging those and tearing them down, and that's costly for you all. So 18 feet is the minimum. And then this will be a closeout sheet. This will have your permit. You'll have your permit number there that's given by either the district or the utility section. Fill out your information, state, okay, we're complete. Talk to the permit officer, and they'll come out there and they'll look at the at the job site, if you've restored the right of way to like kind condition, there's no noticeable damage to the right of way, then they'll close out these permits. These permits are issued either through a standing bond, which most utility companies in the state have a standing bond with us that we charge the work to. In lieu of that, if you have some of these out of state, we call them out of state utility companies, they're just doing work for another individual, or they may not, or they may be just too small and they don't have a standing bond. Well, we'll allow them to submit a check in lieu of a standing bond. And what that does is that basically states that if there's any damage done to the highway and you do not fix it, we will take that money and we will use it to fix that damage. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the UD permits, and these are the permits we see up here all the time. These are the ones we deal with the most up here. And these involve major work. These are runs that are going to be more than a quarter of a mile in length. They do include pavement cuts, which has to be approved by district. You can work around bridges. You can cross or be parallel inside control of access if you have a shared resource agreement with the state. These permits are good for 1 year. This is really if you're not shovel ready and you're just going to get a permit and you're like, we may start to work in 4 to 6 months. This is the better way to go, because these permits will last a year. Same rules apply. Traffic control plan is important. It's paramount. Have that plan in place. Permit officer, you contact your permit officer before you start work at least 3 days prior. And then, of course, like I said, previous, have your permit on hand and at all times. And I'll show you an example of one of those. Let's see. Let me figure this out. Okay. All right. So this is an example of a regular RDOT utility permit. It's a little bit more involved. Kind of the same details apply. The name of the utility, the address, and the scope of the work. And of course, be sure to sign the application. Let's see. Why it's doing that. Anyway, I can figure it out. Let's see. So this is the starting point of the work, and this is the ending point. I apologize, I can't get my, oh, here we go, right here. So we have a starting point and an ending point on a site map. And then here is an example of a right-of-way plan and what the utility plans to do. They have your starting point, your scope of work, your ending point, and we'd like to see the measurement as measured from the installation towards the right-of-way line. Again, no more than 10 feet inside the right-of-way. We prefer you all to be in the back 5 feet of the right-of-way. Let's see, and that's really all there is on that one. So the main questions that I get mostly about this is where do we go? Where do we get our permits? Where do we find all the information? Well, we start at the district level, and if you go to rdot.gov and click districts, this gives you a rundown of how many districts we have. We have 10 districts right now. We're getting ready to have 11 in the future. But for right now, we're going to stick with just the 10 district. So whichever district in the state you're working in, you simply just click on the button. That's who your district engineer is going to be, this will be your district permit officer right here. They will be the ones that you contact for all your permits. And then there's actually a drop down where you can select the type of permit you need and fill it out. They're PDF fillable forms, so they're pretty straightforward. And then you'll take this and you'll email it to the permit officer, and the permit officer will start the process. They'll create it on their end, and depending on the scope of work, which will determine if you're going to be using a general utility permit or a regular utility permit, you'll determine that. If you're having a hard time with that, the district permit officer will be able to walk you through that. So again, if you go to Arkansas or rdot.gov and click on districts, or you'll be able to find all your contacts for that. There's also another tab called permits. If you click on that, you have the different types of permits, and there's a bunch that the highway police handle as far as weight restriction permits and that sort of thing. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's another link to utility permits, and that brings us to our section. This is the utility section. Of course, as you can see now, we're gearing up for the broadband stuff ourselves. We're kind of excited about it. But here we have, again, the redundancy of here's your regular permit, your general permit, your special permit. And then there's a link to the utility accommodation policy. And this is the policy that we go by when we're reviewing all permits to ensure that they're adhering to our policies. And this can be made available to anybody. I'll give you my contact information. It's if you're ready, it's Corey, CORY .Sutton, SUTTON at ARDOT.gov. And what I can do is you can email me and say you'd like to have a copy of this stuff. And what I'll do is I'll send you a link to our Teams folder, which I've got the PowerPoint and I've got all the examples I showed you today, including the accommodation policy. So that way, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to go through that and go from there. So
Thank you, Corey.
And that's really all I have.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate that.
Sir.
I want to go to 811 very quickly. Let me go back to, I don't think we're seeing my stuff. Let me, 1 second. All right. So again, thank you for that. I want to move quickly to 811. Let you guys take over. Let's talk about locating. And then we'll circle back on general questions for both groups, because I've already written down several. So we'll circle back to that. But let's go ahead and move to 811 and let that team, let's talk about some locating.
I'm sorry. Kristen, you want to go ahead and talk about the locate process?
I will. So we are the underground notification system. You can either dial 811 or we have an 800 number, and we're available 24/7. As you all know, with all the fiber work, we have been extremely, extremely busy. Fiber is our number one work type that we're doing right now. And we're seeing about a 6% increase in our call volume. And it's mostly due to all the fiber work. And it's statewide. Mostly, central, southern, and northwest is where we're seeing the majority. So we have been extremely busy. And then plus, in addition to the extra calls, just all the fiber going into the ground, we have been busy handling all the updates from the companies, with their database. So it has been a busy and exciting time for us. Calling in your locates, we encourage them to be done online. You can take advantage of our e-ticket program. Again, that's also available 24/7. And that just, that way you're not on hold. Because if it's a Monday morning, there might be 6, 7, 8 minute wait just to get into the call center, just because we're so busy. Normally in October, we're averaging 11 to 1,200 tickets a day, and we are taking over 2,000 tickets a day. So we have been extremely busy. If you do the ticket online, it will import into our system, and the CSR will go in and just look it over, map it, and then it's dispatched out to the utility companies. And if you're on the phone with us, we're the ones keying everything in. And then we had some legislative changes earlier this year where we have some enforcement now, where the Attorney General is handling that for us. Also changed the 2 working days, where now it's a 2 full working days, and the clock starts ticking at 7 a.m. the next business day. Also added extraordinary circumstance, where the utilities now, if there's ice, snow, anything weather related, they can declare an extraordinary circumstance that will give them more time to locate when it's safe to do so. And then positive response, where you can go to our website. There's a big green ticket search button. You can click on it and enter your ticket number. And once the utilities have located, they will upload that to our portal, and where you can look and see what the utility responded with. Mike?
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say that Arkansas 811, we're really excited about the broadband process as far as being able to get broadband to, everybody in the state. It's going to provide a lot of opportunities for our citizens, for our businesses, for our schools, and probably much, much more. But when we have projects like this going, and which, they're at a fast pace, we always have to have public safety up front, making sure that, that everybody goes home at the end of the day. That's really and truly the most important thing. And in saying that, damage prevention is right behind it, trying to prevent damages on utility lines, because, if you stop and think about it, with all the broadband going in the ground and the fiber and things like that, more people are working from home. And if there is a damage, it affects a lot of people in a negative way. So we really push that. But as much work is going on right now, the communication piece is just critical. The more we can communicate with the stakeholders in the area, the better that project is going to go. Those relationships that we build are just priceless. If you know someone just a little bit, or met them at a meeting or something like this, when you talk to them, you've got that common interest and things like that. One of the big issues that we see on these broadband projects is that typically we don't see a lot of notice that these projects are coming in our area. So a lot of times we don't know anything's happening until we start getting tickets or locate requests there at 811. So what we're really trying to visit with the broadband folks about is, making sure, or if it's possible, to give us a little leadway so that we can go out and have a meeting with all the stakeholders. And what I'm referring to there is the utility companies, RDOT, the counties, the city, and just kind of get the people doing the locating just trying to get everybody on the same page, because we know that the more we talk about these projects on the front end, hopefully it's going to knock some of the bumps out of the road as we're moving forward. And that's really and truly what we're looking at. But we've noticed that the pre-con meetings really work, and they provide a lot of value to these projects. One of the other issues that we see is that we know that some utilities can't mark their stuff, and most of the time it's related to water, small rural water systems. They just don't have the manpower. Their systems have been in for years and years, and they're limited on resources and things like that. And they do everything they can to try to help, but in saying that, it does slow the process down and getting the fiber and things like that installed. And naturally, when the water's cut and other utilities are cut, it does affect a lot of people in that area. What we have saw is that some cities are beginning to pass or get a permit process in place or some type of ordinance in place, so that there are guidelines as to when these projects start. They're not trying to stop the projects or even slowing them down. They're just trying to make sure that they're put in a manageable and a structured manner. And really and truly what we've noticed on that, when they do that, usually production goes up, damages go down, customer complaints go down, and it seems to work out really well. RDOT mentioned the surveys earlier. The surveys provide a lot of value to these projects, because it helps in the design phase and things like that. So again, the more we can communicate, the better it's going to be. One of the things that in our new law that I think Kristen mentioned a while ago is, now every contractor that's out there on that job is required to have a locate request. We think that's a good thing, because this way we know exactly what's going on, where it's going on at, things like that. And if we need to talk to someone, we can talk to that person that is actually doing that job. So just little things like that do make a difference. We've learned so much in the last 2 years, and I think moving forward, all of us working together, we can make a huge difference.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kristen, for briefing us on that. And look, for the folks on the call, if any of this kind of struck a chord, right, or anything sounds really interesting, we're more than happy to connect either 811 or RDOT with our local folks on the ground in each county that wants to talk further. So again, we can work to connect folks and have those additional discussions if something was brought up that really seems super interesting to some of the folks. Really quickly, for folks that are remaining on the call, I wanted to allow for members of our county committees kind of any successes or barriers that you either experienced or have heard about specific to permitting. Now, at the county municipal level, obviously there's a difference, right, between local permitting and state permitting, depending upon the right of way and the road and so forth. So as it relates to local stuff, if there's any successes or barriers or interesting things that you've heard that you'd like to prompt some representatives from RDOT at the moment, happy to walk through that. And any other questions about the state process, and the same for locates. So we know that can be a big issue, right, at the county and municipal level. So any successes or barriers that you guys have faced or would like to inquire on the folks on the call, just wanted to have a moment to allow for that right now. So if any of our folks have any questions, feel free to fire away. And we'll give it just a second or two. All right. Very quickly, I know time's ticking away some. For the county committee folks that are on the call, wanted to have a brief available option here for general Q&A. This doesn't have to be specific to permitting or locating. I just wanted to have a couple of minutes. If anyone has anything and wants to ask any particular questions, I just wanted to offer that ability real quick. All right. Don't see any hands up at the moment, so we'll keep moving. Really quickly, for folks, want to let you know, again, we talked at the beginning about that we're going to expand membership within ABLN. These are going to be groups that are going to come in shortly. So our ISPs are joining the Connectivity Coalition. Those 15 statewide nonprofits and philanthropies are going to join the group. We're sending the invitation to the members of the General Assembly so they can start getting updates on these biweekly calls. And we're also going to include the Association of Counties and Municipal League. Again, all of the mayors and county judges and members of the General Assembly we're all invited to our county tour. They're all recommended members of our county broadband committees. So there could be some that are already on these calls, but if not, we're going to extend the invitation to everyone. So even if they're not on the county broadband committee, they'll be invited to these calls because they're all important stakeholders in this process. And we want to make sure that they have ability to access these things. Again, these folks will be invited to our next broadband committee meeting or ABLN meeting that'll happen in a couple of weeks. And about that, we're going to hold our next ABLN call on Friday, October 20th. That's next week. It's next Friday. We're doing this for a reason. So next Saturday, I'm actually getting married, and I'll be out of town for the week of the 30th and the week of November 6th. No, the week of the 23rd and the week of the 30th. So those 2 weeks are kind of off the calendar for our team and for these ABLN calls. And so normally we would do it 2 weeks from now, but we're going to do it next week. So our next meeting will be in open office hours Q&A for everyone, including the new folks that are joining this group moving forward. So again, next Friday will be our next ABLN meeting. It's going to be in open office hours. Those are our contacts, the website, email, and on the socials. We have a couple of minutes really quickly. I wanted to, a couple of questions for the folks. So knowing for RDOT and 811, so on the call, knowing that this group today was more of local, kind of local stakeholders and local officials on the ground, right? As they're talking to ISPs and bringing the ISPs before them, and again, these are mayors, these are county judges, with these groups that are on the call today. These are business leaders and librarians and that make up the vast majority of our county committees. You know, I'm curious from either group, you know, what should these folks ask ISPs, right? When they're in front of and they bring these ISPs before their local committees, what should they be inquiring of them to make sure that the ISPs are in concert with you guys? If that makes sense. Let's do Mike first, 811. Oh, and you're on mute.
I think, Glenn, a lot of times, I don't think people know what to ask. This is all new to them, and any information that we can provide is probably more information than they had, and I think just the basic stuff is what a lot of these folks, basic information is what a lot of these folks are only wanting. And that's what I see a lot, because I get questions all the time, you know, well, how does the process work? Where are they going to put the broadband next? Am I going to get broadband? Just things like that. And then naturally, at 811, we get lots of questions about the locates. You know, with this much work going on, I mentioned earlier that a lot of the utility companies just will not locate. I don't mean they don't attempt to locate. Their facilities are old. They're probably even wore out, but they just don't have any resources to make anything happen. And then a lot of times we know that when the utility company can't locate, there are damages. And then, you got a lot of these small cities that the citizens sometimes get a little upset because they don't have any water, or maybe their wastewater line has been hit, or it could be a telephone line or power line, wherever the case might be. But I get also a lot of times people ask me, well, is it going to be local people doing the work? And I said, well, it probably will be some local people, but there'll probably be, other folks there as well. So I think a lot of the folks just really don't know much about what's happening, and they really don't know what to ask other than what's going to affect them directly. And so that's the point. That's the whole purpose of these informational meetings that we do, or these pre-con meetings that we do, because typically the provider is there, the contractor is there, and all the stakeholders attend these meetings, and it really opens up conversation about what they can expect, when they can expect it, if there's a problem, what they need to do, and who they need to contact, if they do have questions and things like that. So I think that's what I see as I travel around the state.
Yeah, and I think making these connections are important, right? So now our county folks, our county broadband committee folks, know your names now, know your faces, and know kind of who's behind the scenes on the permitting and locating issues, at least at the state level. So I think it's critically important for us to at least introduce, right, these concepts and folks to our county broadband officials. Very quickly, last couple of minutes on the RDOT side, is there anything that you would impart as sort of lasting or ending guidance as we get off the call today? What should our county broadband committee folks, again, knowing these are stakeholders in local community, mayors, judges, business leaders, librarians, et cetera, when they're talking to ISPs and have them come before their committees around sort of potential permitting issues, anything RDOT thinks that our county committees should pose to these ISPs when they're talking to them?
Yeah, when the counties are talking to these folks, if the ISPs are doing any work inside RDOT right of way, they need to be reminded that the permit needs to be had through the Department of Transportation. They can forward them to the website and go through the permitting process. They can call 569-2000 and ask for the district office in the particular district they're working in, and then they can go through the process of getting a permit. But a lot of folks think that sometimes, oh yeah, well I'm working in the county, but it's actually on a state highway. They just think they need to go talk to the county or the city for that matter. We just want to remind them that if they're working inside RDOT right of way, to contact us to get a permit. And again, make sure the permit is on site, and you make sure that you've contacted the permit officer 3 days, a minimum of 3 days before you start work. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try to answer any questions we can.
Glenn, I've got one other thing to add.
Yeah.
When they're working with these internet service providers, and especially new entities that are coming into the state, you have to be a registered public utility in order to parallel inside the RDOT right of way. There's no private lines can parallel inside the RDOT right of way. And sometimes we have a little bit of trouble with that when we first get that moving. I think that's probably something we'll experience quite a bit through this process.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Glenn and Corey and Mike and Kristen. Very much appreciate you guys coming on today. Look, it's an important topic. We get calls all the time. Either permits is delayed very long, or water pipes have been hit. It happens a lot, and so I want to get this extremely important topic in front of our group, and we're glad that you came on. Again, to our ABLN members, our next call will be next Friday at 10 a.m. for an open office hours, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.